Metahuman Manifesto. What is metahumanism? Metahumanism is a critique of some of humanism's foundational premises, such as the free will, autonomy and superiority of anthropoi due to their rationality. It deepens in the view of the body as field of relational forces in motion, and of reality as immanent embodied process of becoming, which does not necessarily end up in defined forms or identities, but may unfold into endless amorphogenesis. Monsters are promising strategies for representing this development away from humanism.
Paragraph 2. The world as relational complex, the metahuman as metabody. Metahumanist critique proposes to deepen the understanding of reality as unquantifiable field of relational bodies, or metabodies, in changing and constitutive relation with one another. Herewith, we attempt to finally overcome the Cartesian split between body and mind, object and subject, by proposing a view of the mind as an embodied relational process, and of the body as relational movement that operates from the molecular and bacterial through the individual and psychic to the social, planetary and cosmic levels, and in other dimensions of experience. There is no possibility to map a totality or limits of the forces that constitute a metabody, and there is no ultimate exteriority to them, though they may fold and sediment into provisional nodal points that account for an immanent perspectivism.
Paragraph 3. Towards a common relational body. Traditionally, relationality has developed into or been subjected to a variety of systems of intensive regulation. In contemporary capitalism of affects, relationality is increasingly being subjected to control through technologies which produce global standard affects by distributing discrete choreographies. The pan-choreographic is the biopolitical meta-system of control in which meta-bodies are being preemptively appropriated. Possibilities to reappropriate and redefine technologies of becoming need to be shown.
Towards a politics of movement and radical pluralism. A radical pluralist politics is a non-paternalist movement that works through power structures to avoid the re-totalitarianization of politics. It doesn't aim at an ideal final state, but stresses the need to permanently overcome contemporary challenges, which arise by necessity through combining the immanentism proposed by the metahuman with the perspectivism of the posthuman, stressing the importance of movement versus identity.
Paragraph 5. The metahuman as post-anatomical body. We propose to challenge the anatomies, forms, photographies, or identities that constitute the humanist concept of the anthropos, and the technologies that allow for such representations to take form. Anatomy, as a map of human and social bodies, can only be articulated from an external perspective to the body. We challenge the Cartesian split that situates us as subjects, external to an objective reality, into other, bodies and subjects. Through reappropriating and subverting technologies of perception, we may dissolve the condition of exteriority and therewith anatomy and the destiny of the body, not for the sake of a new anatomy, but for a post-anatomical body. Metahumanism thus proposes an aesthetics of the amorphous by considering metamedia, metaformance and metaformativity as possibilities to permanently redefine sensory organs. Paragraph 6. Metahumans as metasexual. Metasexuality is a productive state of disorientation of desire that challenges categories of sex-gender identity and sexual orientation. A metabody is not ultimately categorizable in terms of morphological sex or gender, but rather is an amorphogenesis of infinite potential sexes, micro-sexes. It is post-queer. We are beyond the understanding of gender as performative. Metasex not only challenges the dictatorship of anatomical, genital and binary sex, but also the limits of the species and intimacy. Pansexuality, public sex, polyamoria, or voluntary sex work are means to redefine sexual norms into open fields of relationality, where modalities of affect reconfigure the limits of kinship, family, and the community.
Paragraph 7. Redefining science and knowledge. Immanentism and perspectivism do not need to be self-contradictory concepts. We hold both of them. Yet we propose the need to introduce immanence into knowledge production and the revision of encrusted structures. Perspectives are contingent nodes within stratified intensities of the metabody. We propose both to explode and dissolve existing strata and to move through its nodes, reconfiguring perspectives as well as immanence.
Paragraph 8. Towards a relational ecology, metahuman ethics. A metabody is to be understood as a sustainable relational body that includes anthropoi, other species, technology, and the environment.
Metahuman ethics vows to bring about forms of interaction that avoid the permanent superiority of a force over the others, so that a certain non-violent equilibrium is reinstated over and over again.
Paragraph 9. Towards the transformation, amorphogenesis, and emergent becoming of metahumans. There is no need to distinguish between procedures of genetic enhancement or classical education. Both rely on untimely distinctions or use given representations of a normative regime which are not universal, but result of paternalist political technologies of effective production. We understand alteration processes of the metahuman as flowing types of amorphogenesis of the relational body, all being equally subject to ongoing critique. Paragraph 10. What is the metahuman? The metahuman is neither a stable reality, essence, or identity, nor a utopia, but an open set of strategies and movements in the present. It implies a need to deterritorialize strata of power and violence and induce new forms of embodied relationality by producing a frontier body that is operating on existing boundaries and redefining them. A micro-research considers the genealogies of bodies, movements, and effects for the purpose of both challenging existing regimes and producing new forms of resistance and emergence.